Good morning, everyone. So my name's Chris McBain, Superintendent at Frontenac Paramedic Services. I'm going to be talking today about the IPTS, or the Integrated Patient Transport System beta trial that we conducted with, in partnership with Furno and Crestline. So the project itself stems from Furno's 2020 vision of creating what they feel is going to be the safest ambulance around, and they want to integrate some of their equipment research as well as the ASTAC systems to not only provide a safe work platform, but one that communicates and makes the paramedic's job more efficient. So Frontenac Paramedic Services, we operate out of Kingston, Ontario, which is kind of the northern end of Lake Ontario, and we cover Frontenac County, so it's about 2 hours straight up from that. It's quite a large area. However, the population is only about 150,000. And then annually, we generate around 19,000 Code 3, Code 4 calls. Those are our higher priority calls. And we've got 6 24-hour vehicles and 4 12-hour vehicles, which are operational out of our 7 stations throughout the county. So as I mentioned, the IPTS trial was spearheaded by Furno's R&D department, and Crestline was asked to be the Canadian manufacturer for this project. Work started around, I believe it was 2014, with discussions on how this was going to be carried out. The design elements of the ambulance, we were in discussion almost weekly with Crestline on that. And then in early November, we started training 24 of our staff. We took 2 paramedic partners from each platoon, as well as the floats. So they're the ones that would backfill in the event of vacation or sick time. So the training took place over 1 8-hour day, and it allowed the crews to get familiar with this vehicle and the equipment that's in it, because it is a vastly different animal than what we're used to working out of. So once the training was completed, the vehicle went into service 24 hours a day out of our busiest station, which is in downtown Kingston, just under 10,000 Code 3, Code 4 calls annually. So to start with, after the training, immediately after the training, all 24 of the medics were provided a survey from Furno and Crestline, just to get a baseline idea of what they saw, how they felt about it, and their opinion on whether the modularity of this particular design was something that they felt they were going to use. Then over the course of the trial, they had the opportunity to provide immediate and direct feedback to both of the manufacturers via an iPad and Dropbox that was located directly in the back of the ambulance. This became a very popular tool. Medics used it almost every day to do video diaries, essentially, of various scenarios that they came across, issues, concerns, as well as what went well. And then at the end of it, they did a follow-up survey, essentially the same questions, I believe, and just to see how the mood changed over the course of the 3 months. And as I present the various parts of this vehicle, I'll discuss the pros, the cons, basically the good, the bad, the ugly of what we came across. So all 3 organizations came to the table with various goals to get out of this project. For FPS, we've got a very clear directive from our council that greening of the vehicles is a key focus for us. And this smaller chassis with a smaller engine as well as the ACE-Tech electronics really provided a good opportunity for us to test everything. We're also, thanks to Dave and the Health and Safety Committee, very moving forward in the patient safety side or medic safety side of things, not just patients as well. So the goal of this, or the opportunity came out of this, that the medic was ideally be restrained as close to 100% of the time as possible. As you saw from Greg's presentation, it's a bit of a gong show in the back at times, and people can be thrown around. So that's definitely a major focus of the industry, and we really want to eliminate the number of times that people are unrestrained. Fernal's goal was to basically do a field trial of their modular Intrax and SafePack system, which was designed from a military application, and they were looking to do a civilian application of that. It allowed the modularity within the back of the vehicle, reconfigurability and whatnot. And then, given Ford's plan to phase out the E-Series cutaway van, Crestline was very keen on seeing what exactly they need to do with this new transit chassis. Crestline already makes a very strong box, so it gave them a good opportunity to play with a smaller platform and come up with some different designs. So the vehicle itself, we'll finally get some pictures into this show. It's built on the Ford Transit Global chassis, which allowed Crestline to work with the latest in integrated safety and handling controls. And if you have any questions on that, I'll direct you to Gary afterwards. He can speak to the vehicle itself. So we're seeing an increasing number of these smaller chassis types around the province, specifically for economic reasons. The smaller engine, smaller curb weights, and the emissions technology decreases the fuel consumption, decrease the operating costs. And looking at it from the paramedic perspective, they did offer improved ride and handling, and that's something that came across during our trial, as the medics were quite pleased with how it handled. One of the larger issues that we had concerns with, as you can see from right in front of the rear wheel, that apron was quite low. This being a very dry winter, we didn't get a lot of snow, not a lot of ice buildup, so we didn't get to see if that was going to be an issue. We did get a little bit of snow, and the crews did try to do donuts, and were not able to, so they were pretty impressed at how well it handled on the 401. Aside from the handling, the new diesel engine that's in this is much quieter, allowed for improved patient communication, and allowed the medics to actually auscultate lung sounds in the back of a moving ambulance, which, given the prior designs, was next to impossible. And from a safety standpoint, it also decreases the amount of long-term exposure to the noise in the back of these things. Hearing loss has been something that's been found to be an issue with paramedics. As I said, the response to the chassis was positive. We did come across a couple of issues with this vehicle. One of them, which was a bit of a surprise, and we did pass this on to Crestline. Both of the front seats need to be a power seat. The cab is designed for the average sized male. Some of our larger medics actually sat up so high that they risked striking the back of their head or even the front of their head on the cubby in front of them or the bulkhead behind them. So during the trial, we actually had the taller medics just continue to drive. They were in the power seat, able to lower it into a safe operating position. What's the other one here? Oh, I should also mention we had an issue, and I'm sure some of the folks around our area heard about this. The current GVW for this vehicle was quite low, so at this point we were only able to carry 770 pounds, and that includes the addition of the 2 medics. So it was kind of limiting to our transport capabilities. So we're looking at the interior here. This is the curbside view. We opted to go with the jump seat, and we'll discuss this with Greg later on. All of the crash test data that Ferno was presenting to us clearly demonstrated that it was the bench seats were not a safe position for medics to be sitting in. Greg may have other study data, so we'll talk later. So what we can see here is the kind of the backbone of what the Ferno design, and that is the in-tracks and the safe pack system. So these tracks along the wall allow for these packs and the equipment to be moved around into ideally a location where, depending on the call, depending on the medic preference, the equipment can be used and accessed more readily. We opted to go with a fixed seat. It does swivel, and in discussion with some of our regional paramedic services, a lot of the medics weren't happy with the current designs for sliders. Hindsight, that was a poor choice. We should have, once we started using the vehicle, we realized very quickly that even though the bench seat wasn't a very good position, facing perpendicular to the direction of travel, it did provide an escape route for the medics. This fixed position, if the patient became violent, began vomiting, there's no place to go, and there's no way of repositioning to get a better angle for IV starts. So that is certainly something that for the next round we'll be looking to improve on. This seat did go perpendicular, or straightforward, 45, and perpendicular. Right now, all of our current ambulances have a center mount stretcher, and we opted to go with center mount on this one as well. Again, it was something that had to be changed midway through. Given the smaller box on this vehicle, we ended up not having enough leg room for the medics to turn perpendicular to the patient and actually provide comfortable patient care. So we did move it over partway through the trial, allowing them to get in there. Prior to that, we did have a few minor back strains, just because the medics actually had to turn around to access the defib, which was located at the foot of the stretcher. We also added, partway through, we added some more padding around the vehicle just to improve safety from head strikes and whatnot. So here's the safe pack that Ferno wanted us to trial. As you can see, it's a hard shell case, and it's actually mounted to the track system via the small discs on the back. Inside these pouches, or these packs, are these smaller pouches, which were actually received very well by our medics. They provided a very organized way of storing equipment, and they can actually be popped right out of the packs and moved to where they're needed most at that moment. They also provide a very easy cleanup. You weren't rooting through a lot of different material and contaminated things. You've got the one pouch that you can take out and restock and clean. Some of the concerns that we did bring up with this is the pouches weren't of large enough size for a lot of the equipment that we have. So what ended up happening is we weren't able to put all of the required equipment according to the ministry standard inside these bags. We had a couple of things up above the medic, still within reach from the chair, but it was a blind reach. So we put the IV bags and the intubation rolls up above. So there were big bags that you just reach up and felt it, grabbed it. And those of you that are familiar with the ministry standard, these bags unfortunately do not meet it. The bags are required to be soft-sided, have a shoulder strap, and be a maximum of 27 kilograms when fully loaded. These bags, when empty, were about 8 to 9 kilograms when empty, and that's information we passed along to Furno, providing them with the standard. So they're certainly going back to the drawing board and coming up with some changes on that. Behind those packs, this is the safe mount, and this is kind of the heart of the design that we were testing. This mount can be moved around the vehicle. The red and green tabs are what quickly lock the bag into place so that the bag can be removed within seconds. It's once you do it a couple of times, you get the muscle memory in there, and it actually does become quite an easy movement. All of the N-Trax equipment met the SAE compliance for 22.5 G forward stability and 26 G lateral stability, which is slightly higher than what the current Ontario standard is. Initially, the medics really thought that they would make use of the modularity. However, after about a week, things became quite static, and we found that it's a nice idea. However, for frontline operations where there's the 90-second shoot time to get out the door, we just don't have time to reconfigure for the specific calls. What we did discuss with Furno is that this would be possibly a good idea for specialty vehicles, bariatric, where you've got one specific vehicle that you could repurpose for various things depending on the day, where there isn't a time constraint. We were thinking bariatric, rehab, PR events, mobile clinics at festivals, that sort of thing. One of the key design things, this is the first time that Crestline has worked with the N-Trax system as well, and the tracking actually needs to be cut in specific places, or else you end up with some dead zones. The mounting brackets don't slide right to the end. So that's one thing that they did learn out of this, that as part of the design process, the layout of this tracking needs to be really considered early. And one of the other key things that we noticed, that when the medics were moving things around, they were intuitively creating these stay-away zones, these safe work zones that Greg was talking about earlier. However, not all of them were doing that. So having the modularity also increased the risk of equipment being placed in areas where, in the event of an accident, they could be struck by a vital part of the body. So it's certainly something that, going forward, being aware of these safe work zones is key. Here's just a sampling of some of the various mounts and pieces of equipment that we had in the back of this. As you can see here, this big one is the defib mount, and that actually went from the stretcher to the wall, could be moved from either location. One of the key pieces of equipment that was used all the time was the work tray. And as Greg alluded to, it's a very small work area, so to have that close by, able to move with the patient or with the medic would be ideal. And our medics actually made that recommendation or that suggestion to the manufacturers. why not look at some old school technology? Those of you that remember the old aircraft trays that went down into the armrest, you know, something like that, where it's attached to the seat, moves along, so it's always there with the medic. Some of the mounts that were on here were difficult to move. It required two hands, different positioning, and so we've found that over the course of the trial, some of the pieces either got taken out of the vehicle, they weren't being used enough to warrant them being in there, or got put off to the side and forgotten about. It's a bit of a lag. So this was our initial design layout of the vehicle. This is looking forward, and then the second image is the street side. As you can see, the safe pack in this first image is very close to the seat. So again, it became very apparent early on that these safe work zones, having items close but not too close, was a key design feature. Where it is there right now, the medic had to really twist around. It was very easy to access, but it required poor body mechanics. And again, I think going forward, the wasted space at the end of the track, unfortunately we couldn't move it forward just because of the way the mounts worked. So I think if they were cut in the right place, we could have moved that forward. It would have been a little bit better. But these are things going forward. We've got a removable CPR seat on the street side. That eventually got taken right out of the vehicle, and the crews actually moved that safe pack that was on the curbside with the drugs directly across so they could see it again, so they weren't having to turn sideways. It kind of took them away from the idea of being secured 100% of the time, or ideally as close to that as possible, because now they could see it, but they did have to reach across to access these pieces of equipment. So really I think that the big key here is a culture change. We've become accustomed to working unrestrained, taking that risk, and as Greg's presentation and his research shows, when faced with the choice, paramedics will go with patient care versus personal safety. Get the job done in the back of the ambulance, right? So moving forward, we really need to work on the culture change within the industry to get medics to make use of the safety features that are in the vehicle. Just so happened this stat was put in here by the fellow who created this before I even met Greg, so it's timely to see that. So as you can see, the compliance rate for seatbelt use is extremely low. And so moving forward, just thinking of the designs that and locations of everything should help in getting compliance up. So just a brief summary of the chassis here. It was again received greatly, or very well. Improved the ride. It was our patients were commenting on how smooth it was. Great visibility. The GVW does need to come up, and Crestline is in contact with Ford on that one, and they're looking forward to when Ford comes out with a beefier chassis. The slider seat is definitely a must going forward if we're getting away from a bench in the back and having just that single captain's chair. The slider seat for that escape route is definitely going to be a key element. In the patient compartment, the reconfigured, I can't even say that word right now, moving things around ended up not being something that the frontline medics really decided to use. And so as you can see, the pouches were definitely a plus. They enjoyed them, just need some design tweaking. This thing likes to pause. So just, I think moving forward in this project, the manufacturers took our comments, the comments of the medics, quite well. They accepted them, the good, the bad, the really bad, and are moving forward with those changes. I think combining the frontline feedback as well as the academic research is going to be a key in changing the way we do our job and how safe we are in the future. So that's it. Thank you.